Okay, before we get started, make sure you're wearing your headphones for maximum audio experience. Hello, listeners. My name is El.
My name is Sophia.
And welcome to Rhyme and Reason. In today's episode, we will be talking about self-confidence or self-esteem. Now, what is self-confidence and how do we build it? Now, self-confidence is an attitude about your skills and abilities. It means that you accept and trust yourself when it comes to decision-making. But when you are self-confident, it means you know your strengths and your weaknesses as well as you know the back of your hand. You can set goals or expectations that are realistic and you are open for criticism. If you have low self-esteem or low self-confidence, it means you are scared to make changes or decisions in your life that might be out of your comfort zone, and it renders you vulnerable and susceptible to harsh criticism. A quote by Eric Ravencraft: "Self-confidence is a bit like the running water in your house. You may not know every detail about how it works or where it comes from, but it's painfully obvious when it's not there. Like your water is shut off." The dearth of self-confidence has a huge negative impact on your health and lifestyle. Fortunately, there are things you can do to share it up. But to understand how it works, you need to understand these three terms: self-efficacy, self-confidence, and self-esteem. Self-efficacy is a term that refers to your belief in your ability to accomplish tasks. For example, if you believe that you are capable of going to that interview and crushing it, or to take that special someone out for dinner and at the end of the night maybe get something sweet, then these are two examples of self-efficacy at work. Self-confidence is more of a concept or how you perceive yourself based on your experiences. For example, when you know you're good at something because of the number of hours you have spent on doing this particular thing, maybe something like playing the guitar or dancing, you build up confidence. Self-efficacy and self-confidence are based on experiences. But confidence is focused on how you view yourself as an individual. Self-esteem refers to an individual's overall worth. For example, when I say I am good at this or I'm a good person, these are examples of someone having a very good self-esteem. But having too much self-esteem is toxic, and these people are often called narcissistic. Why do you think people have low self-esteem or low self-confidence?
I'm going to be basing my answer on a book called Understanding Social Psychology by Stephen Werchel, Joel Cooper, and George Goethals. So this chapter tackles how our self-concept emerges from our interactions with other people, and it also goes into detail on the way we will make attributions about ourselves based on our behavior and how other people behave when we are around. As you said, based on the definition of self-confidence, it's based on our experiences. And these experiences include interaction with other people. This is how we know who we are, basically. So William James, one of the founders of psychology, he said that our concept of ourselves, or quote-unquote me, is derived from our experiences with others. For example, if your parents see you washing the dishes or making your bed, they will say that you are masipag or responsible. Or when you go to a relative's house and you are courteous, they will say that you are well-mannered and well-rounded. And so one wouldn't know that he or she is well-mannered and responsible if other people did not point it out themselves. Like for you, do you have an experience where you discovered something about yourself from another person?
Well, for me, one of the main reasons that I actually started a podcast was because a lot of people like the sound of my voice. I've been in a lot of Discord servers where we would endlessly talk about random topics in voice calls. The most compliment that I would get from people would be about my voice. I'd often hear comments like I should start a podcast or I should try to become a radio broadcaster or a broadcaster.
So that's one good example. Before that, did you already know that you had like a good voice, like a well-modulated voice before other people pointed it out?
Before people from Discord pointed it out, I was in a choir here at church. So I was one of the very few male voices, I was one of the very few males in our choir because most of the choir were girls. So my mentor, she liked the sound of my voice. And so she trained me to reach the tenor and the bass. I guess that's one of the reasons why I have a bit more self-confidence about my voice is because I have had some training. I can't say that I've had a lot of it, but I've had some training that's been very helpful to, the way you hear my voice today.
Mm-hmm. So it added to your confidence, because it's safe to say that before that you didn't really put that much value on your voice. You kind of regard it as something that's normal until other people point out, hey, that's different,
Yeah, exactly like that.
So the idea or the process of anchoring one's identity on their experiences is called reflected self-appraisal. And it's similar to the looking glass self presented by Charles Horton Cooley. We would always imagine what others think of us, and what we think they think about us affects our own self-evaluation. So as the word suggests, self-evaluation is basically assessing yourself and your overall performance or skill. It also depends on the people that you surround yourself with. That's how you know if your personality or your behavior affects them positively or negatively. For example, you seek validation from your parents and friends because you uphold them as people who are significant to you. Their opinion and their judgment of you matters. And if someone says that you won't be successful, but your parents and your whole family really encourage you and really push you, and they say that you have potential, obviously you will hold the value of their validation much higher than some random person. In that way, the people that we surround ourselves with and we consider as important, their opinions is what we anchor our identity and our validation from. And that boosts our confidence. That's why, basing from that, I could say that's why it's a struggle for some people to have a lot of confidence or have high self-esteem, is because they often surround themselves with, not often, but more likely they surround themselves with people who downgrade them or go against the opinions of the people that they love, like their parents and friends. So when there's contrasting opinions about your behavior or your personality, you will start to question it, especially if you also don't have solid foundation of who you are, because you're easily swayed on what other people think you are. And so that's one of the bad sides to it.
Another factor that this would have, like you mentioned, life experiences. I think trauma also plays a big part on having very low self-esteem or self-confidence, because a lot of people have experienced bullying or growing up with unsupportive groups of people. whether it was some have very unsportive parents or friends or classmates. And some suffer from anxiety and depression, which then lead to a very low level of self-confidence and self-esteem. Genetic makeup is also one of the factors of having self-confidence and low self-esteem. People have more self-esteem and self-confidence over others because some have a bigger advantage in terms of inspiration. I was inspired by my mentor to take that contest that I did a few years ago, which was 2017. This contest was the Philippine Culinary Cup, and we were against a lot of culinary institutions here in the Philippines. And if I'm not mistaken, there were hotels as well that competed with us, that competed against us. Some were from Shanghai, some were here from the Philippines, and I think there were some from Korea. But yeah, my mentor inspired me to join him or join his team to compete in the event, the PCC event in 2017. Now, this built my self-confidence because I thought I was just an, average student when it comes to my class, because in terms of grades, I was almost at the line of 90s, but I'm not that good. Until my mentor made me realize that he said the words, "You have potential in the culinary world, and I think you can make it a long way from here." I just translated from what he said to me in Tagalog. So, yeah, this built my confidence because I really thought I was average, until we spent hours and hours of training. It was almost 3 weeks, I think, when we were training for the contest. And that's another part of having self-confidence is when you train for a certain number of hours and you know that you're improving, this is where you improve your self-confidence.
So that leads us to the second point of the chapter of this book called Understanding Social Psychology. So the second point is we figure out who we are and we will know our value and worth based on the attributions about ourselves based on social comparison. I feel like most of us immediately compare ourselves to other people, especially if they are around our age, if they're also like male or female or taking the same degree or also a student. So we often compare ourselves to those similarities that we find in other people. For example, I would easily compare myself to a friend who is also 20. She is taller than me and she has shorter hair than me. And so it's easy to pick those pieces that you find that are similar to us. And what this does is it helps validate us. For example, if you're comparing someone who is also around your age and who has been learning piano for 3 years, you can see that your skill set is almost same or slightly better than them. Then you can conclude that, oh, I am also good at piano. The same goes with like math subjects and stuff. One distinct memory I have with kind of losing self-confidence and having low self-esteem was during the end of our grade 11 school year. We all had to do clearance, and for that we needed to answer or solve a math problem. And this math problem was distributed by the STEM head himself. So we all had to line up and get a piece of paper and then answer it. And once you answer it correctly, you're automatically cleared. I didn't really understand the concept of that. I guess they wanted to evaluate how well we understood everything, but I don't know. That doesn't really sit well with me. Anyways, so we all take our paper, we each have one, and then we all answer it. And the questions revolve around the topics that were discussed. So it was basic calculus, pre-calculus, statistics, etc. And I could say that I'm moderately good at math, like I'm pretty average. And so when I got the paper, my self-esteem and self-confidence was slowly declining because I was slightly overwhelmed on the problem that I received. And so when I saw my other classmates solving theirs almost easily, like so easily, I immediately thought that, oh, I'm not that good at math. I'm not smart. I wasted my time learning in senior high school. And my self-esteem really sank. And I also lost confidence in my general ability of being able to answer things. But still, I tried to pass my paper and I didn't get the right answer. And so that added to my low self-confidence and self-esteem. So I tried to answer it again. And after waiting for the result, I still got it wrong. And so it really affected me mentally and emotionally because even though my classmates were helping me, I was still kind of doubting myself. And that doubt kind of crippled me and didn't allow me to even keep trying anymore because it's ingrained in my mind that, oh, I'm not good at math, so I didn't even bother trying again. And so that's one way that comparison kind of helps your self-confidence and also depreciates it. If you compare yourself to an extreme to other people, you can compare yourself to someone, and if you see that they're better than you, turn that energy, instead of feeling envious of them, turn that energy and take them as an inspiration. Take them as an inspiration in a way that you can see them achieving it. And if they can do it, then you can do it too. Instead of degrading yourself, try to pull yourself up to their level or even higher. Not because you want to prove that you're better than them, but you want to prove to yourself that you can still grow with the things that you already know or like who you are. And so that's the positive effect of that is called upward comparison. And the bad side of that is called the downward comparison, where instead of comparing yourself to someone who has the same skill set or a slightly better skill set than you, you compare yourself to someone who is inferior to you. One of the things that stuck out to me in the examples was feeling kind of self-righteous in a way that, for example, you would do something wrong. For example, you would answer back to your parents and you would justify that by saying that it's fine, I'm not that bad of a child, I'm not that bad of a person, because there are other kids who don't take school seriously, who have bad grades, who do drugs and do all this. Like, I'm not that bad, so I don't think I'm a bad person. And so that turns into kind of self-validation. It's kind of like a defense mechanism. And so, yeah, that's one of the contributing factors when it comes to gaining and also losing self-esteem. And so, yeah.
Okay, but how can you improve your self-confidence? Building your self-confidence is really just a matter of changing your beliefs about yourselves. For example, you need to start thinking differently. Think about it as, when you start your day, think about the words, I'm good enough, or I'm smart enough to do this, and people like me. And to maybe try to say it in the mirror every day. I mean, it wouldn't hurt. Unless, of course, the mirror speaks back. But, try to be honest with yourself. For example, let's say someone asks you what you do for fun or what you do for a living. And if you find yourself biting your tongue or hiding something, try to evaluate that. That's an indication to either stop doing that thing or more likely accept that part of yourself and own it. This doesn't mean that you have to share every part of your personality with everyone you meet. You can share your geeky hobbies, your geeky friends, or stick to your work topics at work. However, you can find someone to share yourself with. When you stop hiding parts of yourself from other people, you find you feel more confident in who you are. This is a quote by Mr. Hubert from Oxford Handbook of Positive Psychology. And another way to build your self-confidence is start working out. It's an easy step to build your self-confidence. Maybe go for a 15-minute run or 15-minute walk. Doesn't really matter, just as long as you start working out. And one of the most important advice I could give you is try things that make you uncomfortable. Try to go outside of your comfort zone, because confidence is ultimately about being comfortable in a wide variety of situations that make most people feel uncomfortable. So if you expand your comfort zone, you will feel more comfortable with yourself and you'll feel more comfortable trying new things. What I've noticed about a lot of people, they tend to walk at a very bad posture. Okay, so our music teacher taught us how to walk properly with a very good posture. And this was mainly because when you have a good posture, you have more self-confidence. And when you have more self-confidence, you can sing better because of how relaxed your lungs feel when you have a very good posture. And the one thing I noticed, most people walk with a very bad posture. They tend to be slouched, and this is a really bad posture because it would hurt your back, and in the future it will get worse. For the sake of your health and build more confidence, is adjust your posture. You just need to walk with a straight back, and if you can, try to widen your shoulders. If you have a good posture, you can have more self-confidence. What do you think? How else can we build our self-esteem or self-confidence?
Like I said before, when it comes to self-comparison, because obviously as people, it's in our nature to compare ourselves, especially on social media. It's easy to just pick apart someone and kind of base your worth on somebody else's page, or depending on their pictures, etc. And so before going on social media, you should know that there's a reality in social media. And on social media, people obviously like to post something that is perfect or ideal or worthy. And so obviously they won't post ugly pictures or things like that. So it's important to know that there's a reality behind that. Oh, I like how you brought up some of the points, like saying that you're good enough every morning, and also like sharing your personality with others. Can you tell I'm invested in this? So thinking and doing what you think you are. So for example, like what you said, saying that you're good enough, saying that you're smart, you're beautiful, you're lovely, you're kind. Words like that, they really have power. And so once you release them, they really have their value, and their value comes from your belief that it is true. And so the more that you say those things and believe in those things, those words only have the power if you give them the power. The next tip that you shared about opening up and sharing your personality to others, I think that's really good advice, because since we discussed that our experiences and interactions with other people help us discover who we are, I discussed this with my sister also, because she kind of shared the same sentiments as I did. In high school and even growing up, I wasn't really nailed down into one group, or maybe I was in a couple years of my high school life. But in senior high school, I wasn't really tied to a single group. I would call myself a floater because I would go from group to group. I didn't really, those groups that just stick with their own, kind of their own tribe.
Yeah, just like, CWTS.
Yeah. Mhm. So those groups would always stick with the same people all the time. And I've experienced the same where I stuck with a group for a couple of years. And what I noticed is, your identities different from a group to another. Because like you said, you show your weird side to your weird friends and a different side to a different set of friends. In a way, one good thing to know is always try to expand your social circle. Don't just confine yourself into one solid group. Although it's nice to have like a couple of solid friends that you can trust and rely on, but don't shut yourself out from the rest of the world. Try to meet new people and share like a different part of you to them, because that's the only way you'll know a part of you that you wouldn't discover by yourself, if that makes sense. So, for example, you're with people who are artists. And so once you show them your work, you'll be validated in a way because they are from that industry and they know the skill that's needed to execute that. And so they're able to give you more constructive criticism and the validation that you need compared to your friends who are not really inclined to art. And so you wouldn't get the same return of validation compared to them. And so, finding the right people is key to having good self-confidence. So it's important to surround yourself with people who are the same as you or with people who you aspire to be.
And that's Rhyme and Reason, where making sense just makes sense. Thank you for listening to Rhyme and Reason Podcast. You can support us by subscribing to our podcast on the Anchor app. The support for our podcast will allow us to produce more interesting episodes in the future. If you like that episode, please hit that like and that subscribe button if you haven't already. Leave a comment down below to let us know what you think about the episode. Follow us on Twitter by clicking the link in the description. See you next time.